Everyone. Welcome back to another Wick Animation Editor video tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up the Wick Editor at wickeditor.com, and you're going to see this welcome screen each time. Again, it shows you what's the latest, greatest, and if you click on this green version link up here, it'll tell you what's new, and I encourage you to check that out. So when you click on Try It, usually it's going to say that it found an autosave from the last session. So of course you can load it and load up your last session, or you can just press delete and start off brand new. So I'm going to show you some nice little grab bag of things today in this video. Let's see, a couple of things just for review. If you have a scroll mouse, you can zoom in and zoom out by using the scroll wheel there. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to direct your attention to is over here in the top right hand corner. You're going to see the little gear button here. That's the editor settings. And so first things first, you can go ahead and save your project. So I'll just call this demo project. You can change your background color. I think today I'm going to kind of go sort of like a blueprint, like an animated blueprint. You do have two color pickers here throughout Wick, and I would encourage you to get used to the second one. It is more advanced. Looks like a color picker in a traditional paint program, but the reason why I love it is that it gives you access to the alpha bar here, or the transparency slider here, which is really important. So let's go ahead and close that. Let's see, if you are learning Wick, you've got all the different shortcuts here, so you can start to open those up and learn those. Under editor here, you can change the way that the onion skinning looks. Now I'm coming from using other animation programs like Flash and Adobe Animate and Blender's Grease Pencil and Krita and other things like that. So standard is good, but I actually like tint because then you can actually go ahead and use colors, and you can see the before frames, and then you can see the frames that are coming in the future. I'm not sure if that's what F stands for, but okay. So let's go back to the project settings. So we've got the size here, and you can check them out, 720p and 1080p if you're putting it out on the web. The default frame rate is 12 frames per second, and I think that'll be good for now. What's interesting, I just noticed, is that I changed the editor and I went back to project and it took away all my settings. I'm not sure why it did that, so maybe that's a bug. Change my background again. There we go, and I'll hit apply. Okay, so it looks like you need to hit apply for it to actually take effect. There we go. So now if I go back to the editor, okay. All right, so you have to hit apply before you leave the screen, otherwise it does lose those settings. Okay, so there's my blue screen there. All right. Okay, so how to save your project. So I've named the project up here in the top left. To save your project, you have this save here up in the top right-hand corner. And there's no cloud storage that I know of. And so when you click on save, it just automatically saves, so that's good, but it just downloads. And the file is called whatever you saved it as. So you can see here, demo project, and it saves it with a time date stamp, so you know which one is the latest file, and it ends in .wick. So this can only be opened up in the Wick editor online. You can send it to yourself through email and through Google Drive, so that's great, but you can only work on it if you have connectivity to the web, and you can do that. You can't just double click this and open it up on a Windows or Mac system. So if you're like me and you like to save every 10 minutes or so, you'll end up with quite a few Wick projects. So what I recommend you do is I recommend you make a folder, call it Wick Animation or something like that, bouncing ball, whatever your project is called, and then maybe saving and dragging and dropping them to that folder so that way they're all nice and organized. All right, moving on. Next is layer naming. So you come down here, you already have one layer, but it's just called layer. You have to click on it, and when you click on it, then over here in the inspector, you can go ahead and name it. So I'm going to call this rough for my rough animation layer. Alright, so now you can see that it is named down there. You will see, I hope this is helpful, you will see my keyboard shortcuts showing up here in the bottom left-hand corner. Now I am on a Mac, so you will see the Command key. So if I do that, you'll see Command Z right there. If you're on a Windows machine or a Chromebook, it's going to be Control Z. Alright, moving on. A couple other nice little tips and tricks. So I like to do my first rough animation, just figuring things out, getting it to look and feel right. I like to do that with a really light pencil. So alright, I'm going to press P to get the pencil tool. And then the pencil tool, you have the fill color option and stroke color option. The pencil tool is a stroke color option only, so you can't really do the fill. So I'm going to go here to stroke color, and I'm going to go ahead, because I have a blue background, I'm going to choose white as my color, and then you'll see what it looks like. So that's what it looks like. That's a little too harsh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the line width here. This is the line width or stroke width. And again, you can just type in a number, see what it looks like. So that's 2, 3. So kind of find your happy place. I think 3 is kind of where I'm going to go. So this is 3, 2, and 1. So find your happy spot. So I'm going to settle on 3. Then come back to the stroke width, and I recommend playing down here with this bar. This is the transparency bar, otherwise known as the alpha bar. And right down here, you'll see a little box that says A, and it tells you it's at 100%, which means that your stroke is completely opaque. So if I click and I drag on there, you'll see that you can get it approximate. If you're a numbers person, you can click inside that box and you can type in whatever you want. I found somewhere around 25% is kind of where I like to go. So you can see it's really semi-transparent, very light, easy on the eyes, maybe 40%. There we go. Okay, so 40% I think is pretty good for demonstration purposes. And I can still see through the strokes, and they're good. Okay, so I'm going to kind of make a little animated blueprint here. Alright, so now I want to erase all of this, so I'm going to press C, and that gets my cursor tool, otherwise known as the selection tool. And then I'm going to drag a box around all my brush strokes, selects them, press delete on the keyboard, and clears them out. I'll press P again to get the pencil tool, and now my brush is ready to go. Okay, so now I can go ahead and on frame 1, I can go ahead and draw the ball. Maybe I'll go to frame 4. Remember, it disappears, so you want to turn on onion skinning. So now onion skinning is turned on. Remember, with onion skinning down here, you can choose how you see your frames, how many frames you see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and draw something like this, where it's splatting. I'll press C, grab the cursor tool, click on the brush stroke, and I can use my arrow keys to just nudge it, or I can just click and drag it until it's down on the ground. There we go, something like that. Okay, I'll go ahead a few frames, go back to the pencil tool. So now I'm not seeing my very first frame, so I'm just going to extend, there we go, extend the onion skinning, and I'll go ahead and I'll draw it right about here. There we go. Add another keyframe. And again, just pressing the cursor tool, getting it down where I want. And I'll kind of put it off screen. Okay. All right, so there are all of my frames. Get it in the middle there. So it's a little tough to see. I apologize. Maybe I'll go back up here, change the background color to something a little bit more neutral, like a light brown. Maybe I'll go a little darker. You can see it better. All right, so that should be more visible there. Sorry about that. Okay, so you can see all of my frames here. The reddish ones are the previous keyframes, the behind keyframes, and the bluish ones are the forward keyframes. So that way you can really distinguish those. So I really like that feature. All right, I'm going to finish up this video tutorial and give you a couple really handy, life-saving keyboard shortcuts that I think you should absolutely remember. Okay, so first things first. C is for the cursor tool. That's to select things. So click on it. Delete will, of course, delete. B for the brush tool. P for the pencil tool. That's what I'm using here for my rough animations. There we go. Again, remember, if you draw something that you like the way you drew it, but it's too big or too small, you can press C for the cursor tool. Click on it, and then you can click and drag. You can make it smaller. If you don't want to squash it and distort it, I'm going to undo that. Hold down the Shift key, and when you hold down Shift, you can click and drag on one of the corner handles, and that will constrain the proportions, and that way it doesn't get distorted. You can also rotate your selection just by getting your mouse pointer here on the corner until you see the double arrows. Click and drag, and you can freely rotate if you want, so that's very cool. Okay, other keyboard shortcuts. So let's see. E for the eraser, really important. Just erase and it's gone. You will see on mine, it's kind of strange. It does show that it's doing white right here, but then when you let go, it truly does erase. So don't let that surprise you. Okay, a couple more shortcut keys. Okay, moving around in the timeline. Sometimes when you really get animating and you get into the flow of things, you don't want to come back down here and click and drag and scrub the playhead moving left and right. So on the keyboard, find the comma key and find the period key. So comma moves you to the left one frame at a time, period moves you one key to the right. So if you can keep your non-dominant hand over the comma and period, it'll be helpful for you. Okay? So that's going to be it for this tutorial, getting a little deeper into the Wick editor for animation. Thank you very much. If this was helpful for you, leave me a comment below, or go ahead and feel free to subscribe. I'm going to be putting out a lot more tutorials as our school year is getting along here. Thanks very much. See you next time.